if my belief, continue the tax cut for the lower middle class,
right,
and put a rollback on the upper class over $250,000 a year, and use that $30 billion to do something smart with, because it won't go back into the economy if we.
Although the argument is, Larry, that those are the people, the most successful people who hire the people, and is during a big recession the time to be raising taxes on.
But they're not doing that. They're not hiring people. It's not.
Is this the time, though, Deirdre, for us to be doing a great big economic experiment? Larry?
Well, I don't think so. I think I'm right. I think it's something like 7% of the high wage earners, top wage earners, 7% pay 89 to 90% of the taxes.
That's right.
To older Americans, you know, your Medicare payments, they're too high.
I don't think there are Republicans who are willing to say that. I think that there are Tea Party members who believe that sincerely.
No. They're going to hold.
They are going to force Republicans to face the real issues, which are entitlements.
Well, I just haven't seen it. I don't even see it.
I think they will.
You know, I don't even see it from the people who are endorsed by the Tea Party saying, yes, here's
Well, I mean, Chip wants this race to be, all these races to be a referendum on Barack Obama because it's the only way Republicans can win. They can't run on their record because they don't have one. That's why it's so important that Democrats make this race a choice between themselves and their Republican opponents. The myth out there about a lot of these Republicans is much bigger than the reality. When you look at these candidates and pull the curtain back, it's a lot like the Wizard of Oz. It's a little guy or a gal on a stool. And that's why you got to go after him hard.
And to that point, do you think Democratic candidates are running that way? Because a lot of these races we've seen already have gone nasty. I mean, it's below the belt and it's personal. It's not about the issues. It's not about a stimulus vote or a health care vote or a cap and trade vote.
You're right, Bill, and that's the mistake some of these Democratic candidates are making. Joe Manchin, a wildly popular governor in West Virginia, the Republicans are trying to tie him to Barack Obama, even using an ad saying, he's such a great governor.
But it made a difference, perhaps.
On that issue, things have changed a lot in the last 6 years. So, again, I think we're seeing it's good for progressives, it's good for Democrats, and it's good for the country. It's also good for the budget in California. Something like $1.5 billion added to the budget if they could legalize and tax marijuana.
Now, why do you think it is, Alan? We looked at intensity, and it does increase the number of Democrats, according to the polls.
We don't realize that there's such a better way to look at our life and our business than some of the liberal policies we've had for decades.
As far back as I can recall, being a voter and even being old enough to pay attention to the races, there have been Republicans that have been in office, and all I see is education being cut.
We keep saying we. I'm not part of we. They did, so the homeowner should have rushed himself back into the house, because then apparently a life would have been in danger and they would have turned the hoses on.
Right.
This is so we would never have a situation where an ambulance, an EMT worker would be hovering over a nearly dead body in the street and say, "Hey, buddy, this ride's going to cost you $800. Are you good for it before I put you in the back of the bus?"
But John, how far could you take it? But she raises a very good point. How far could you take this, Mercedes, where you charge people for 911 and somebody calls and says, "My child is choking," and they say, "You didn't pay your fee."
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really draconian, but it has to be. The bottom line is this: if we don't adhere to this, no one's going to be safe. There are going to be lots of these.
I could never vote for a person.
So you would vote for Daniel Webster, who
I would vote for
force
no
a
one
woman.
if I felt, I don't think Mr. Webster is forcing anybody to do anything. All right,
Yes,
he has an opinion.
Yes,
he has a pro-life position, and you can take it or leave it.
No. There's a difference, Bill. You and I agree that there's a difference between a pro-life position and a position where a woman who is a victim of rape or incest cannot obtain an abortion.
You can have a pro-life position, and people can disagree and not vote for you, okay? And perhaps that position would cause people not to vote for Mr. Webster. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay.
But it doesn't speak
because he would force a woman
who... It doesn't speak to Mr. Webster's character. He believes what he believes, and he says what he believes. This goes to Grayson's character. Okay?
I do think, though, that this goes
listen
to
to
his
me.
character.
Listen to me.
Okay.
This is important. This goes to this man's character. He is a flat-out dishonest, will do anything to get elected. I could never vote for a man like that, no matter what party he was in, under those circumstances. So I would either stay home or vote for his opponent. And you know, Alicia, I don't think you could vote for Grayson, no matter what. I think you'd either do what I did, stay home, or vote for the other guy.
I could, though, when you're looking at how extreme Webster is and the fact that I just don't think staying at home is an option for most voters.
So you would
put
an issue over honesty. You would rather have a dishonest person.
I would put an issue over style.
Not style.
And now he has another ad out that's just
the point is they can't use this witness because the judges ruled they wouldn't have known about this witness except for the fact that the suspect in this case was tortured. And that's that.
Here's the
so what's your argument that he needs to be able to testify?
Well, I'll tell you what, Chuck, they've already made, this is being taken up on the Court of Appeal, so that's not a final decision. Now, a Court of Appeal has already made exceptions to usual civil rules. For example, they've said the speedy trial rights that most people are afforded to in a civil court don't apply to these terrorists. This is, listen,
David's wrong.
But however, there's exceptions that are going to be made here, and I don't know exactly what the nature of this enhanced interrogation was. Was it actually torture or wasn't it? We don't really know the facts.
Well, we know the judge says it was. We know it's going on appeal. Mark, go ahead.
And that's the problem. The appellate court usually doesn't disturb factual findings. The judge at the lower court made the factual finding that this was a violation of the defendant's rights. Period. End of story. The appellate court is not going to reverse a factual finding.
There's no law that says I have to do things the way typical lawyers may do them. We do things in our way. We've won hundreds of millions of dollars for victims of employment discrimination, injustice.
Is $6,000 really worth putting this woman at risk? Is it really worth? Is $6,000 the amount of money that you put a client at risk of being deported or prosecuted? Is it really worth that?
Well, here's the point. Nikki wanted to speak out publicly. As she said yesterday in our news conference, no one held a gun to her head. She is no one's puppet. She has made an informed...
It's unfortunate for him. It's not entirely his fault. But vice presidents become the butt of jokes. And Biden is. Can you then, purely for political reasons, stick him at Secretary of State now? I don't think so. I mean, the motive here would be purely political. It wouldn't be to enhance America's foreign policy or its diplomacy. And for that reason alone, I think this is a non-starter.
Well, and so many people think that the vice presidential position really is not that powerful in a lot of respects. I mean, is Hillary in a more powerful position doing what she's doing now, Julie?
Well, it's a little bit of apples and oranges, and I think we're giving Joe Biden a little bit of a short shrift here. He was in the Senate for 30 years. He has an extensive international portfolio as vice president. He's in charge of the Iraq policy, who's very influential on Afghanistan. Obama has given him a lot of responsibility. He's doing a lot in the White House.
Sure. Yes, you're deporting them, but can't they just come right back across the border? Isn't it easy just to come back in here? Because we do see people, criminals, convicted of crimes that have been here many, many times and deported. Bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, the kind of the yo-yo effect. Here's the thing. First of all, some of them have committed crimes in Mexico or Central America. We turn them over to law enforcement.
And when you have a candidate like Meg Whitman, who is very wealthy, looks to many people like she's coming in and trying to buy the election, and then engages a behavior that looks hypocritical, it's very, very damning. And I think that's, again, she's lucky that it's not having even a more powerful
What about
effect.
that point, Jonah? What about, forget whether Nikki Diaz, who laughs and cries and has blood in her veins, forget that, okay? Right. What about the point that Meg Whitman looks hypocritical? Because she has been running in part on cracking down on illegal immigration and employers who employ illegals, and at no point, even after June of 2009, when she knew that she had to fire this housekeeper who was illegal, did she say something like, and I can speak to this myself because I did everything I could to not hire an illegal, but it wound up that I did, and so and so. It seems like she put it under the rug.
Yeah, no, look, I agree. I think schedule when he knew it could never go through. It was I think it was a very race-conscious strategy and a despicable one. And I think, as Dan just said, it had exactly the opposite effect. It made opponents of immigration mad, and they will vote.
That said, I don't see this. I must tell you, guys, I disagree totally. In fact, I think that what you're going to see is that Latinos understanding this affects family issues. I know it affects their family and keeping families together. I think you're going to see a higher level. And so a Republican energy, right. But you know what? People don't vote in midterms, and I think Latinos in general have not been involved in American politics. But this is wishful thinking on your part, because Latinos could spell death for Sharon Angle and for many Republicans across the country.
Sharon Angle's up in the two latest polls that came out. It seems like now people are breaking, and they're breaking against the incumbent.
And it's a risky strategy long term, I think, for the Republican Party to risk alienating and offending Hispanics and Latinos in the long term.